Hey, well, today's fellowship topic is idol worship. And I'm sure you're going, idol worship? What? I don't like bow down to any wooden figures or make things of stone and then have like sacrifices to them. It's cool. I'm good. But honestly, if you think about it, idol worship today is still quite relevant. It's just different than what we think of. Now, as a believer, we know that we're supposed to love God the most with all our strength, all our heart, all our mind. And the first commandment is very simple: have no God besides God. And we're like, okay, yeah, I'm good. God is my God. I don't go around, praying to some made up false idol, right? However, I want to challenge all of us, including myself, to ask ourselves, what is your top priority? Because in reality, whatever you've made your top priority, whatever is on your mind the most, is on the topic of your conversations, whatever you never skimp or scrimp on, wherever you're most lavish with your attention, that, my friends, that is what your idol is. That is your God. And I have to say, it's very easy for a lot of us for that to become work, right? We talk about work a lot, and prepare carefully for work on the weekends and all of that. And the same, if you're in school, school is your job, right? So it's all about the tests and studying and grades and all of that. So, we need to rethink that as believers and really stop and ask ourselves, how are we building our life decisions? Are we making it on the creator of the universe and the ultimate judge of our souls? Or is it these other things? Is it people or things? And ultimately, where should we be putting all our striving? And where should we be savoring the moment? Well, we know that should be God. So we can talk about another form of modern idolatry, and that's when we ask people to help us or things to help us, or depend on things like money or a degree or a car instead of God. Now, I want to be clear, obviously, what I'm not saying is that you get sick and you don't get medicine. Quite au contraire. What I mean, of course, is that we ask God first as a believer. So when you're sick, you're going to ask God to help you. When you need a ride home, as you're calling the taxi cab, or before you call that taxi cab or your friend to give you a ride home, you ask God, please deliver me home safely. And you know that any money or knowledge or any of these things that are provided to you, God is the ultimate source of all these good things, and that these things are just proxies for his power. In other words, they're avenues, they're go-betweens for God's power. So let's think about that one. Okay, so this one was a big wake-up call to me because I hadn't really realized it until quite recently. But another form of idolatry is worry. And the reason for that is because when you worry about something happening, or you're fearful of something other than God, even if it's a person with a weapon, you are assigning more power to something outside of God. And that's idol worship, because as believers, we know God is in control, like that really great old Twyla Tharp song, right? And in Arabic, we can say La quwwata illa billah, which means all power belongs to God. So seriously, don't worry. And here are some more reasons why. As a believer, we know, for example, here's my philosophical argument for you, that God is good, right? We don't doubt that. And that God is in control, right? And that God is fair. We know that he never burdens a soul beyond its means. That means even if something awful happens to you, there is the strength, the emotional strength in your soul to overcome that. It doesn't mean that there's going to be perfect equality on earth, but that God knows us individually and he will give us the emotional strength if we lean on him. So in the end, no matter what happens, we know that we shouldn't, that everything is going to work out in his plan. So a believer should always be reminded to don't worry, be happy. And really, you gotta give me points for the smiley face. So yeah, we're supposed to be trusting in God, because believe it or not, worrying, that's actually a form of idol worship. Okay, so how do you know? So now I'm like discussing all these subjects, like what's the priority in your life, and what are you thinking about? And how do you base your life decisions? Are you worried? Are you thinking that other people can help you? Okay, so those are really important things to all keep in our mind. And just a kind of reminder, how do you know if something is like taking over priority in your life? Well, if you're delaying worship, if you're forgetting worship, if you're compromising, those are things that lead you to skipping out entirely on the growth of your soul and deepening your relationship with the living God. And if you're forgetting, that means probably you have bad influences in your life, right? Because the things and people and activities that you surround yourself with should be supporting you on your faith walk, right? And not pushing you away from it. Should be keeping you on the path. And the last bit is that if you're finding yourself questioning if you're being a hypocrite, then that's not a good thing, because that's not something that God really likes. So make sure that the most important thing to you is worshiping God, and that you show it by not delaying, forgetting, or compromising. And then another note on wow, gosh, lots of crazy things happen in the world, and sometimes it's hard to be trusting and not to worry. But I want to take a moment actually, to mention that God sees the big picture, and it's all in His plan. So if a tragedy in the world or personally happens, we know it's a test for us human beings, because this world is going to end, and there will be a new heavens and earth, and all justice will be perfect at that point. So we have to remember that anything that happens, it's there to expose our true qualities, those who will strive for God's cause and who will steadfastly persevere. I mean, that's basically testing your faith, seeing how strong you are a believer, and seeing what kind of believer you are. When you're challenged with people who need you, are you going to be there for them? So he talked about love, and I hope I get points for this one too. But God is so worthy of our love. We can look at beautiful sunsets and mountains, or even, if we personally can't travel anywhere, we can always look at photos or videos and just appreciate the immensity of and the perfection of nature that God created. And it's a reflection of Him as a designer. And that just, I think, inspires a lot of love. And also when we think about all the wonderful blessings He's given us in our personal life, well, there's so many reasons that we should love God, for personal and bigger reasons. And just remember that, this earthly life is nil. It's going to be zero. You're going to be gone. And if we've developed our hearts enough, our souls, and that connection, our relationship with the living God, we're going to dwell with Him in love for infinity. And that's awesome. I think that's an awesome thing to reflect on, especially during the drudgery of a regular day. And so I wanted to bring a couple of verses, or actually one verse here from the Quran, to share with you, because it is really, I think, inspiring to us as believers. In the Quran, it says, the believers remember God while they're standing, while they're sitting, on their sides. They reflect on the creation of the heaven and the earth, and they glorify God. And so that's a beautiful example for us to try and follow. So no matter what you're doing, if you're shopping or running, or jogging, or doing any chores around the house or whatever, that's a perfect time to shut off your, worries and the thoughts about what's going on, and just get into some real worship time.